What's up, everyone? This is the Ready for Launch podcast, a show where we break down product launches, share our favorites, and explain why they work. I'm Andy McCotter-Bicknell, and I'm here with my co-hosts Tamara Graminski and Jason Oakley. And it's time to break out your copies of Play Bigger and consult with Christopher Lockhead and his band of category pirates, because today's episode is all about category launches. Now, category creation or category design, hotly debated topic. Some people believe it works, they love it. Others aren't so sure. So Tamara, what's your opinion on category creation and when it works, when it doesn't?
Yeah, I have spoken a lot about category creation, actually. And I do think it works for some companies in some situations, but it's one of those things where it can't just be a strategy that you like pick from a hat of like, we're going to create a category and that's going to help us win. I think where I've seen it work well is when there actually is a meaningful change or different approach about that company and that philosophy, right? There's a unique POV point of view. There isn't really a world that you can anchor in today. So that's one of them. And then I think category design also works really well when you're actually able to connect it back to real results and real behavioral change. It can't just be this like aspirational, fluffy world that you're painting. That might get initial attention up front, but customers are going to see through that over time. And so it actually has to be linked back to real concrete product value.
Yeah. It was one of those things I liked about the book Play Bigger. And they talked about this idea of like category, you're building a category as a company. It really has to be something that becomes part of your culture, like everyone's fully bought into. And I always love this concept they talked about, like the natural gravity or the organization. When people set out to build a new category, or even if your company just has a very strong POV on the market and you want to behave in a certain way, a lot of times like gravity, like a big customer who wants a certain feature that might not be in line with like your roadmap. And when you think about that category, it's really hard to say no to some of those things, right? That you might do in the short term for short term gain. And I always thought it's like it has to be one of those things everyone's fully bought into, you know?
Totally. And it's like one of those things too, where like, I think creating categories, it's often confused or like reduced to just creating a name, like a unique couple of words for like the space that you play in, like something intelligence or acceleration or something to do with revenue. And I think if you reduce it down to like that, just like foundation, it's pretty pointless and it ends up actually just confusing your target audience more than it really should. And you'd be honestly just better off like just playing in an existing category where there's already demand. And so you have to be really, really intentional about like educating your audience about why you're going to market in this way, why you're different from like whatever the status quo is. And it's a lot harder than I think people assume, like right off the bat, and a lot more expensive, right?
Yeah, I think that people conflate a product narrative with a product category, right? So creating a narrative is a key component of creating a new category, but they're not one and the same. Like you can just have a really strong point of view with a really compelling narrative and play within an existing category. Jason, to your point, to create a net new category, it's going to be like a 10-year investment. Like Andy, as you just mentioned, it's not an overnight thing. It's a 10-year investment. It requires support from across the business. It's not just a marketing play. And a strategic and compelling narrative is going to help you win that, but it's not the only component of a category.
Yeah, like a lot of, I think it could just be that we're marketers, but a lot of times it's, when you think of creating a category, a lot of it might boil down to, or you think about the marketing side of it. So much of building a category is based in product. Like you're building a new product that fits within a brand new category, and everything that goes on your roadmap should be go along with that vision of what the category should be. And that's why it takes more than just marketing to create a category.
Totally. And that's like where I think the disconnect can be, where like if the product's exactly the same as like every other competitor in the space, but you're saying all this different kind of fluff, then like that disconnect can really spell a lot of issues for your customers and your prospects down the road, because they're like expecting something different from like maybe tools that they've already used. But if it's just the same, then, there's not really a reason for them to buy in or try anything different. And so, yeah, a lot of the choices I think that we're going to be going over today, they're really going to be diving into like a truly unique way of approaching a problem that people have had in the past. And so I'm really excited to dig in.
Me too. I think this is going to be good. I think we're not just covering B2B software examples, if I remember correctly. So it's going to be kind of cool to see what category creation looks like across a variety of different industries.
Totally. All right, let's do it. Who's going first? Grayson, you wanna let us know?
All right, I'm also gonna I have the leaderboard, so I want to touch on the leaderboard where we're at in the season currently. So right now, I'll just mention the show leaderboard. So who's won each episode? And right now, we have Tamara in the lead, 3 wins under her belt, and Jason and Andy are tied for second with 2. So this is getting close.
Yeah. Here we go. So it's everyone's game at this point still.
Everyone has a chance. Everyone still has a chance.
I'm feeling good.
I was just about to say that. I'm feeling good.
Yeah,
You're not feeling good. I'm feeling good.
Yeah. Are you feeling good? I'm feeling good.
I'm feeling great.
Okay. Here we go. Well, what about the audience choice?
So the audience choice, we won't have last week's done yet. Wait, actually, I'm going to cut off. I actually don't know the audience. I'm just going to. Sorry.
All right.
So
we'll
I don't.
Keep that in. Okay.
Yeah, that's I love how you started off like maybe you're going to figure it out like along the way. But then you're just like, no, I actually can't. And so I'm just
Jason, I think, is winning the audience choice, but I don't actually know the exact numbers. I did win the last poll. I will say that.
Nice.
Okay.
So, okay.
All right.
So we have
I've won
some
one,
idea.
Some idea, yeah.
We have some idea of who is in the lead.
Some idea.
but-
We're going to have to collect the
matter,
polls.
we swear. We
Yeah.
care a lot about the polls.
The problem is we won't have last week's yet because just the way we record. But
Yeah.
there will be a winner.
There have been winners. We can assure you of that.
Yeah.
But I have also randomized, so we do have the order of presenting in this show.
All right.
Okay.
So who's going first? What do we got?
Can we get a drum roll, please? First, we have Andy to kick us off.
Get
Nice.
it. All right. Let's kick it off.
Do it, Andy.
3, 2, 1.
All right. So I'll just start by saying that category creation doesn't always need to be it doesn't need to lead to like generational shifts in technology, culture, or routine. However, I do think that if those are your goals to have such a massive impact on like how people live and operate, then category creation is probably the best strategy for you to pursue. And I know we try to be diverse with our picks on this podcast and, add startups in here as often as possible. But I needed to go big for this one. And I couldn't think of a bigger category creation example that's really impacted me personally than Netflix. And before we talk about Netflix, let's talk about the biggest loser in Netflix's story, which is Blockbuster, right? And to do that, I'm going to take you all the way back, to the early 2000s. I'm a 90s baby. And so I was in elementary school at this time. And every couple of weeks, I'd join my dad to a trip to Blockbuster, to pick up a couple movies to watch over the weekend.
Good times.
And this is a magical memory, by the way. Usually plan out what we wanted to rent a couple days in advance. I'd have to get there early on Friday. Otherwise, the movie might be sold out. I could usually only pick one movie, right, for budgetary reasons. And then I had to watch it quickly, or else we'd get charged a late fee when we went to return it. And that was my experience for years. And I know it was also millions of other people's experience too, because in 2004, Blockbuster had a whopping 9,000 stores open globally and was earning a massive $5.9 billion in revenue.
That's wild.
Now, yeah. They were a big business. And if you had told me that by 2005, they would lose 75% of their market value, I probably would have looked at you and said, what's market value? Because I was 11 at the time. But if you would have instead told me that Blockbuster would be obsolete in just a couple of years and that I was, it was mostly because of a company called Netflix, I would have been mind blown. Because around this time, Netflix had really just created the DVDs by mail category. And it was about 10% of the size of Blockbuster. But they were growing really quickly. This DVDs by mail category was what initially started to hurt Blockbuster. They didn't charge late fees. Your favorite movies were always in stock. They gave you a personalized list of recommendations, and they charged a subscription fee rather than a cost per movie. And as you all know, they continue to grow. By 2007, Netflix revenue doubled over the past couple of years. Blockbusters was stagnating. And that's the end of the story, right? Wrong. What happens next is why Netflix is my choice, because when everyone least expected it, Netflix put the final nail in Blockbuster's coffin by launching another new category, and the one that they'd ultimately be most known for, which is streaming. That's right. You didn't even have to use DVDs to watch movies or TV shows anymore. You could just watch them on Netflix's app. This took things to an entirely new level, much beyond Blockbuster. We all know how that story ended, but with streaming, American culture shifted. How? Let me count the ways. Number one, with streaming, we got the concept of binge watching, or the ability to sit down and watch seemingly endless amounts of content. We got the cord cutting movement, which led to a massive wave of people canceling their cable subscriptions in favor of streaming platforms. And we even got phrases like Netflix and chill, which means, well, we won't get into that. But in either case, you get where I'm going with this. When Netflix launched the streaming category, they changed everything. Remember the 4 million subscribers that I mentioned them having in 2007? Guess how many subscribers they have? Jason, Tamara, guess.
Today?
Today.
Oh,
50 million.
gosh. I think more like 500 million.
Okay, so today they have nearly 270 million subscribers. And their business is worth $250 billion, all thanks to category creation. And I'll end my segment with one of my favorite elements of this story. And that is, streaming was always a part of Netflix's mission, hence their name, Netflix. But they had to wait for the timing to be right before they released it. And I think that is such a baller move to essentially have your category that you're disrupting be in the name of your company. It was there for literally everyone to see it for a decade, but absolutely nobody understood the level of impact that it would have on our lives. And so that's my spiel on Netflix and why I think that they had the best category creation launch.
Nice one. I'd love the last point you made, how it's like you knew it, and it was very clear they wanted to get to streaming, but they had the middle, which was by mail, which was like a completely new category in itself.
Yeah.
That they created as a stepping stone to get there, which was, it's just a very cool, it's cool. It's cool to think about because at the time, I think for most people, they probably didn't have the internet to do streaming well or cheaply. And so, I do think a lot of times there are categories that come around that just come too early and it's not possible for them to take hold and it's just not the right timing. And so that is an interesting thing with category creation. In some cases, timing is really important. And they had the foresight to just wait a little bit while still building a successful business, which is cool.
Yeah, I love it. It's like we talked at the beginning of the show about how category creation is like a 10-year investment, right? And we kind of pulled that number out of nowhere, but also there's been a lot of studies that it is around 10 years, I think. And this is such a good example of that, Andy. And it's interesting to think about. It's not just, okay, we have the same message, we keep pushing for 10 years, and then finally we break through and it's worth it. It's more like, what are the time horizons we need to be considering in that 10-year, decade? And so when I think about time horizons, I'm always like, okay, short term, next 12 months, midterm, 1 to 3, say 1 to 5 years. And then long term, 5 years and beyond. And what's the product and narrative and go-to-market strategy of each of those time horizons that are going to get you to where you want to go in the future? And I think that this was a really great example of that, where Netflix is basically saying our first time horizon, our first milestone we need to hit, is actually not the end goal, but it's a critical milestone along the way, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really I wish that I actually pulled a list of companies that didn't quite make it, but had the right idea, but were just too early, because I feel like that's happened for a lot of categories. With Facebook, I think that they probably, I associate them as being the de facto social media platform. Even though, before we had MySpace, we had Pixo, we had all these iterations, but to be honest, Facebook came along at the right time. They had the right execution. And so people just naturally kind of associate them with that category. And I think that's another thing that people might get confused a little bit about, when it comes to category creation. I don't think that it's necessarily the first company that comes along with the idea. It's the first company that comes along like with an idea and is able to get like mass adoption and is able to execute it in the right way. I think Google's another example with like as being like the de facto search engine. You know what I mean? Like they really nailed it. They got mass adoption. They weren't the first ones to like release a search engine, but like I would say that they predominantly like made the category what it is today.
Yeah, a good example of that would be the company, is it Jabra or Yeah, I think it's Jabra. They make they are actually the category creators of the fitness bracelet, the wireless speaker, and like wireless earbuds, I think.
Yeah.
And they're not the category like king or owner of the category of any of them. So they were the first to create it. They're not the one who actually owned the category, which is interesting. And I think to your point about like, is there one out there now or an example of one that might be too early, for example? I wonder if it's things like AI Pin or Rabbit.
Oh, 100%.
AI and the ability to have like a handheld device. And I just don't think it's there yet. And so I do wonder, I think it'll eventually get somewhere, but I wonder if they'll be the ones who actually own that category.
Absolutely. Good points.
Great example, Andy, and has impacted all of us.
Yes, indeed. It's still my favorite streaming platform. It kind of goes between that one and Max, I would say. Max has some good stuff. I watch it. I watch it about every single week for 90 Day Fiance, so I got to give it credit for that.
That would be
Is
like
that the HBO one?
Yeah,
you're talking to three Canadians. Andy.
Yeah,
that's true. Sorry. Is it not? Is it not Max over in Canada?
No.
Oh, it's just HBO.
HBO's on Crave. Yeah.
We actually have to get a whole other thing to get it. Yeah.
What is Crave?
Oh, we don't have time.
Yeah. We don't have time.
Okay. All right. I'll look into that.
It's not worth learning. Don't worry.
Okay. That's awesome.
Okay, sweet. So now we have the second presenter, and we don't know who it is yet. So let's do a drum roll and open reveal. Second, we have Tamara.
All right.
Tamara is up.
Go, Tamara.
3, 2, 1.
Okay. So for today's episode, I pretty much did the exact opposite of you, Andy. I chose someone at the very beginning of their category creation journey, but someone who I'm watching the launch play out in real time, and I'm respecting a lot of how they're handling it. So we don't know yet if they'll be successful at this, but it's interesting to watch. So I've been a big fan of Intercom for a while now. So we're going to go back to the B2B software space. And they just launched a new category called AI First Customer Service. I love how they approach launches in general, and this launch is definitely not disappointing. So when I was thinking about the episode, my criteria for a good category launch is the category narrative clear and easy to understand? Can the company actually deliver on the promise of the category? And are customers compelled to make a change? And I really do think that what Intercom is doing checks off all three buckets. So I'm going to walk through how I'm interpreting their go-to-market right now. So first, they started by seeding the market. If we go back to the Intercom website a year ago, I checked online, their homepage described them as essentially the automated customer service platform. In hindsight, though, you can see how they were positioning themselves then were steps along the way to where they wanted to get to today. And a lot of important things happened in 2023 to like seed this narrative. The first was that they launched a new report called The State of AI in Customer Service. And they had a lot of interesting stats that came out of this that kind of made customers pay attention. So they said 69% plan to invest more in AI in the year ahead, and 72% believe that AI will actually give companies a competitive advantage. So if you're reading this as a customer, you're starting to feel maybe a bit anxious if you're not thinking about your AI strategy. And around the same time, they launched their first AI product, which was called Fin. And actually, we talk about Fin in our course, Ready for Launch. But they launched Fin, which is an AI chatbot. And since they launched it last March, they've already added over 20 new features and capabilities just to this product alone. So they're heavily investing in this new product. But what I love is that it gave them essentially a 1-year runway to build trust with the AI in their product. They didn't like come out of the door with a strong AI narrative. They actually positioned Fin and the AI chatbot as a way to drive automation rather than like AI being the leading value prop itself. So they're building a little bit of trust with this language and with the product. And so when they launched their new category, which happened last month, April 2024, it felt like a natural next step rather than this like overnight radical change. So let's talk about the launch itself. They launched it April 2024, and they used a ton of different channels and techniques to actually launch. There was a blog post, which was really more of a manifesto. I think a lot of category launches have a manifesto, which really digs into why this matters, why we believe something different is happening in the world. They had a launch video, which was actually 5 minutes long, very long from a launch video perspective. But again, it was really narrative driven and it went into the why behind all of this. They completely overhauled their website, which was a massive task. And two things that stood out to me about the website. First, they included an open letter from the CEO right on the homepage, which is really cool. Again, it's almost like a taste of that manifesto right there. Like they're calling out so clearly that they're doing something different, like that they actually put good real estate on their homepage for this. And I'm not sure if either of you checked out the site, but the aesthetic of the site is stunning. It does not look like B2B software at all. It actually does look like AI generated imagery, or very futuristic, I should say. And I read a Facebook post or a LinkedIn post. Sorry, we're talking about Facebook, a LinkedIn post from the design team. And they're saying they didn't use any AI to design it. It actually was done by a designer, but they really wanted that aesthetic. So it's very cool. You feel like you're investing in the future, I should say, when you're on that site. They also launched a monthly product broadcast series called Built for You, where every month they're going to be taking you on a journey into this new category and what it means and how they're building. So they're like really standing behind the product value here. And this launch in April actually coincided with a product launch as well. So not just the launch of a new category, but they're rooting it back in product. And we're going to get to that after. One thing I love about their narrative is that they call it an era and a system. So it's not just like a category, right? It's a little bit more approachable. And they make a really compelling argument about why this is the next decade. This isn't just a fast trend that's going to go away tomorrow. So they use language like, we're only 18 months into a 10 plus year cycle. This is real. This is happening now. Based on our data, we can confidently predict that in the very near future, almost all customer service questions in all customer channels will be excellently answered by AI. They use language that drives urgency and it makes it feel important without it feeling scary, which is key. And they do a great job of describing like what the heck is AI first customer service. They didn't use intelligence, so that's a plus. But I think a lot of people struggle to actually define what they mean by their category. And they had a very succinct description that they included everywhere, which is at the highest level, AI first customer service involves first seeing if AI can resolve the problem. And if not, then seeing if AI can help the agent resolve the problem. And they actually break the category down into 3 parts. So there's three parts to the system. There's an AI agent component, an AI co-pilot component, and an AI analyst component. And that's how they frame the whole category overall. And so it's really interesting because they're basically creating this world that they can start to slot products into. So let's talk about the products themselves. So they anchor it in real results that they're already seeing. Because they've been testing the product, or at least components of the product for the year, they have data. So there's an amazing chart that they included in their blog post that shows the improvement in effectiveness of their own AI products within this category. And so they're super transparent to say 12 months ago, this was just okay. It had an average resolution rate of 28%. But now we're seeing 46%, and it's growing faster and faster. So the message is really get on board now before it's too late. They launched a beta for the second pillar. So they already have Fin, which is that first pillar. They launched a beta for the second pillar of the category. It's called AI Copilot. And they've already had some customers who are seeing results, up to 31% improvement in efficiencies. And their whole Built for You product broadcast actually highlighted this product launch. It was marketed as a product launch. And then at the end of the product launch, they launched the category as well. I have one more thing to say before I run out of time. So I think they then tease the third pillar, which is coming soon. So they're building excitement for it. But the one thing I think they've done so well, we talked about this, is most categories at the beginning feel fluffy. They're conceptual, they promise a future value rather than something immediate. And I think Intercom has done a very smart move here where they are painting the vision for the new world and acknowledging that they're far away, but they're also delivering immediate access to that world today. So you can almost go on the adventure with them as they go towards that new world. So that's my interpretation of the Intercom launch. What about you guys? Have you guys been following it at all?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Actually, so my did they actually, you said they launched the product, then they launched the category. Have they actually called it like a category and said this is like a new category?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
forgot.
So if you go in, I can send you a few things after, but they have the product launch event itself is super interesting to watch. And
Yeah.
then they've created, so they play with a few words. They have used the term category, but they're not splashing it everywhere. They're calling
Right.
it identity, which is a category, they're
Yeah.
calling it a new system. It's bigger than just them though. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
It's interesting because it's like one of those things where if you kind of well, and I guess the reason I like it is because if they don't call it a category, because I feel like you could get caught up in creation of this new category called, right, AI customer service, whereas they could also just say that this is the evolution of customer service platforms. Like, everything is going to go to where it's AI. We are the first ones to, like, this is the new customer service. If you're not moving in the direction of AI first, like, you're going to be left behind. And because it's you can almost take the same AI first approach and apply it to so many things. And so I this is where I think the idea of category creation, people can get caught up so much in the idea of like, is it a new category? Is it not? When what I think they do a really good job of is they're just explaining like how this new way of doing customer service, like, what it is, what it's going to look like. And I really like how they make it very clear, like what's included in an AI first sort of approach to customer service. And so it's to anyone watching this who's like, oh, we're thinking of this, and are we creating a category? I don't think it really matters. And I think that
Yeah.
that's why that they can call it a new identity. They can call it a new category. Like what will happen, the way they create a new category is down the road. Is there an AI first customer service category, and is there just a customer service platform category? And
Totally.
and that'll more just kind of like their customers will pull them into that direction, or do they just end up redefining what customer service actually is?
And I think what's cool is I would actually say they're probably creating a subcategory, right? Because they're not saying we don't need customer service platforms anymore. They're saying there's a new type. And I do feel like it's more than just adding some functionality. And if you go into all of the narrative that they're building, it is very much the category playbook where like they're creating the terms of the category to best suit them, right? So they've created a system with the three pillars. They've basically created a shopping list for buyers that none of their competitors can stand up against, at least not now. But I do agree, Jason. I think time will tell if, on the grid, do we have two categories?
Yeah. And even, yeah, grids and like Gardner and all those things. Like, I think that is another thing where it's at the end of the day, if they point out and define what AI first customer service looks like, and everyone starts to use that, and everyone starts to think that like that's how it needs to be done, I don't think it matters if they created a category or not, because everyone's going to be like, naturally, if they want to go AI first, they're going to go with Intercom.
That's one of those things where I feel like if I hear more about just the fact that somebody is creating a category, that tells me that it's probably just not going to work out for them because they're just more swept up in just like, we're creating a category. Yeah. And it's like almost like you're just kind of like I don't want to be too mean, but kind of like posing a little bit. Whereas like you don't need to say that. Like most people can figure out, at least most marketers can at this point, like with like the manifesto, with like new pricing models, like these are all like little like keys that lead to, a broader like category creation or like subcategory that you're trying to create. And so I think that that's just the most important part. If you're preaching that you're creating a category that's more for you versus like the audience that you're trying to support. And I think Intercom is doing a great job of sharing how it's going to revolutionize the way that their like target audience is going to approach customer support. And so, yeah, I've been loving watching all of their updates. It's been super cool.
Well, and Andy, I actually saw that you liked something on LinkedIn from the CEO of Intercom, but I'd already chosen them and made my notes for this. And I saw their post where he basically this week, like this is happening in real time, right? So this week he emails all of the employees and is basically like, we're already bullish about this, but we're getting even more bullish. We considered raising another round of funding. We've actually decided to just take capital from within the business. And I don't know if Andy remember, but I think it was something like dozens of millions of dollars.
It was like
they're gonna
100 million.
invest- Okay, yeah, this year to bring this to life even faster than they had imagined. And they specify exactly what that means, what teams are growing, where they're investing. They're throwing marketing dollars at this, which I also think is a signal that this is a category. Anyways, it's a fascinating email. If you haven't read it yet, Jason, highly recommend.
Yeah, that's cool. Share all this.
Definitely worth a follow. Like I would just follow if you're like, they're like a marketer's company for sure. Like just great marketing. Yeah. Obviously they have a great product too. I'm just like not in customer support, so I can't really speak too much to it, but very fun to follow.
All right, Jason, what do you have for us?
Final one. Bring us home.
All right.
Let's go, Jason.
All right.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
All right. So my example of category creation I'm going to talk about is 5-hour energy. In this case, we're talking about like a B2C product, right? So it's and to explain 5-hour energy for anyone who doesn't know what it is, they currently today own 90% or more market share of the energy shot market. So not the energy drink market, not to be confused, the energy shot market. And so I really like this example because it's a cool example of creating a subcategory to win in a really competitive market. And what I really like about the 5-hour energy, it's a really cool example of how you can play a different game in an already established market, one where you can actually win. So the founder is this guy named Manoj Bhargava. I got his name right. Born in India. He moved to the US when he was 14. He was in Princeton for 1 year, then he dropped out and he was a monk for 12 years in India. He had a successful exit from one company, but in 2003, he was at a natural products trade show, and there was a booth that had like a large 16-ounce drink that was like a productivity booster. And so he tried it, and he was like, had tons of energy for the next like 6 hours, and he thought, this is pretty cool. I could sell this. And so for the next year, he developed a product and launched it in 2004. And at the time, right, he essentially was launching an energy drink, but it was different. And so at the time, it's energy drinks was still 2004, relatively new market. But if you were looking for an energy boost throughout the day, right, there was Red Bull. You also just had sugary drinks from Coke and Pepsi. You also had coffee, right? A lot of options out there. And for him also, when you're thinking about this crowded market, he's not only competing for mind share, he's actually competing for like literal space on a shelf in a fridge, right? So when you're thinking about a gas station, you're thinking about a convenience store, you're thinking about a Walmart or whatever, there is fridge space that you have to compete with. And all these companies have a lot of money to make sure they get that space. And so instead of competing at their game, he ended up creating a new category and completed a completely different game. And so the first thing that he did well, and anyone thinking about a category, creating a category now is there an underserved segment of the market with the current options that are out there today? And so when he looked at the likes of Red Bull, sugary drinks, things like that, he was able to identify a couple of underserved markets, right? So like Red Bull was, obviously they're targeting people who are like athletes, extreme athletes. A lot of their advertising is there, a younger generation. But in the meantime, he also had people who, one, weren't necessarily looking for a drink. They weren't looking necessarily for something that's cold and refreshing, something that was a lot to drink that you might have to, go to the bathroom for later, right? They wanted people who wanted an energy boost, right? And that was basically it. And so the couple of their early markets were things like truck drivers, office professionals, people who are finance folks, like people who just needed a boost of energy. But for example, if you're a truck driver, you don't want to have to stop 10 miles down the road or, whatever, 100 miles down the road to actually have to go and pee because you had a bunch of liquid. And so really trying to identify key market segments that weren't really being served or looking for something different from the options that were out there. Okay. The next thing that he did is understanding that he changed the size of the product. Like he changed the product in general. So he made it a shot, not a large can. So this is what created the energy shot market. And so it appealed to this new market, a great example being truck drivers, people who just wanted that energy shot. A way that he kind of described it, a quote from him, is he is like, I thought, if I'm tired, am I also thirsty? Like, do I need a drink if I'm just looking for an energy boost? And so he really focused on this idea of, I just want an energy shot that is going to be able to give these people the boost that they need without having to make them drink a drink. That was one thing. He changed the size. By changing the size, he also then changed the location and the distribution, like the way he'd actually get it out to customers. And this is a really cool example of, it's like a way to think about too, when you create a new category, can you change the way you distribute your product? Not just change the product itself, The one, they didn't have to sit beside the competition in a fridge, right? They didn't have to be right next to the competition. They didn't need fridge space. Didn't have to be refrigerated. And because of that too, they were able to be more front and center for buyers. They were able to go on cash registers. They were able to go in the checkout aisle at a place like Walmart. So it's very top of mind. They were able to drive like impulse purchases more because it was right front and center for people. The other thing that they did well with energy shots is they're saying, it's healthier. Now that could be very much debatable, but because it's not a large drink, obviously it seems like you're drinking less. On the bottle, the early bottle really focused on hours of energy, sugar-free, 4 calories. And so you're getting people who are like, I don't want to go out and get a Red Bull that's packed with sugar, or I don't want to get a Coke or a Pepsi. It might give me energy, but it's not great for health. And so by creating a smaller bottle focused on more of the messaging around, hey, it's not packed with sugar, they were able to appeal again to that segment of the market that wanted something different. And so conclusion wise, when you look at where they are today, 5-Hour Energy, they are the king of their category. That whole concept of you create the category, you become the category king, you're going to own about 90% more market share. Very much the case for them. In 2022, they had 980 million in sales. And the second biggest competitor, this company at the time, a product called Stacker, I think, they had 27 million in sales. So they own the energy shot market. And even Red Bull, and I think Coke or Pepsi came out with their own energy shot versions as well. All of those failed and they're no longer around. So a very cool example, and why I really like this one, is it kind of is really highlighting this idea of there can be a competitive market. You could find a subcategory, right? Or you can play a different game that allows you to create a different product that meets a very specific segment of that market. You can also change the way you distribute it and position it in a way where you can actually win by playing a different game. So, yeah, that's why I love 5-Hour Energy.
That the distribution piece, I think, is so key. I feel like we could probably dig in to find like other, probably like non-software examples, but just like other probably like physical or like B2C examples where like it just like changed the way that they approach giving people the product or where they like actually pick it up or how they buy it. That's like a big key in creating a category. This example reminds me of Beyond Meat when they were initially going to market. They ended up putting because they're a vegan, meat substitute product. Instead of going and putting their products in like with the rest of like the vegan stuff, like in like a vegan aisle, they put their packaging like next to like legitimate beef or like burger meat. And so like they weren't trying to appeal to like people looking for like a vegan alternative. They were trying to appeal to regular like meat eaters. And so they found a lot of success that way too. And so that kind of reminded me of that, like how 5-Hour Energy, they're not even like with the other energy drink products.
That's a really cool example. I was trying to think of one that might be in B2B SaaS. Like, can you think of anyone who's created something that's distributed in a different way? I was trying to think of something. I couldn't think of it.
I can't. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, because like that's like the model. You know what I mean? Like you purchase it off of like just somebody's website. I mean, the only thing I can think of is like if like resellers maybe. I don't know. I don't know how it would work with SaaS, or it's not coming to me automatically.
Yeah, we're gonna have to noodle on this one. You can't spring it on us like that.
The one thing I was thinking about too is like when you create it, because with categories, there's all these assumptions, right? Like that's one of the things where it's when you say you're in a category, you have assumptions like what it should be priced, right? The pricing model, like those are all things that your customers naturally think about when they're in a category. Like if I'm, I don't know, buying like sales enablement software, a lot of times I'm going to assume there's like a license fee per rep that is using it, something like that. And it actually goes to your point, Tamara, on the AI customer service one. That's like, are they dramatically changing the pricing model? They probably are. And so like that, there's going to be, as people start to have AI powered and AI in their platforms, like it's naturally going to change pricing models. Now, obviously, that's not necessarily distribution, but yeah, think about it.
With Fin, it's like it's based off of like resolutions. I think their pricing is their Intercom's product, which I think is again, I'm not a customer support person, but I'm pretty sure, because I remember seeing a bunch of attention about people talking about this pricing model, how it was different from just like a typical, like, yeah, you pay per user kind of a thing. And this was different because it was paying per resolution.
Yeah, exactly. So I use it as an example in the pricing week of the course, right? I put up the fin pricing, and they do two things. They there's some feature gating, but they price based on resolution, which was at the time, I don't know if people have fast followed, but at the time was revolutionary. And all of their stats now, they report back on efficiency towards resolution as well. So they're framing it. I actually haven't checked out the new pricing, but I should see if it's evolving. Another example, I think what we're getting at, whether it's pricing or like where it's at in the store, is the buying journey is an opportunity for you to be different, right? And if you just think you're going to create a category and keep the same buying journey as before, then it's probably not actually going to disrupt the space. I mean, another idea that comes to mind for me is just like direct to consumer in general, like Brooklyn and Sheets, for example. I love their story because they're like, yeah, we wanted to buy high quality sheets. It was really hard to do that. Anytime I had to buy sheets, I had to go to like a lame department store with people who were like generations older than me. I would never shop there for any other reason. And I just wanted to like buy sheets that were nice. And so, yes, they created a more, I don't know if it's necessarily more affordable, but more affordable for the quality. But the main thing that they did different was they allowed their consumer to shop in the preferred way of that consumer. They didn't try to create a better value sheet and put it in like the Bay, for example. Andy, the Bay is a Canadian department store.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Casper's about San Francisco too. Similar thing.
Casper, yeah, exactly.
Like mattresses, because that is.
And I would consider Brooklyn
that a category.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I have Brooklyn and sheets on my Casper mattress right now. I am the target customer.
We have an ND though, which for anyone, that's the Canadian Casper. So you guys wouldn't know that, or ND would. Yeah, that's cool. Cool examples.
That's great stuff. But now it's time to.
Thanks, Grayson. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing it home, Grayson.
We got our audience of one right here. Just trying to appeal to Grayson.
Well, if it's a tie, you do have to appeal.
That's true. Okay, so I'll save the sugar coating.
Okay, no, seriously though, that was a good episode.
Can you put that in the recording?
What everyone's here for is right now the vote.
I'm torn, you guys.
Come on, Tamara. We're friends, right? We're buddies. We're pals.
Don't pressure me, you guys. I feel pressured. I have to think about two different examples.
Pressure. Hey, listen, no pressure. I think just go with your gut.
Whoever I give this vote to is going to potentially be tied with me for 3.
Let's take the strategy.
Well, I could still win.
No. This is not. We're votes are not about the strategy.
That shouldn't go into your voting.
Yeah, come on now.
Are you sure? I don't know. I'm a pretty isolated
situation here.
I like it. I like it.
Okay. I voted.
Okay. Let me double check. All right. We do have a winner. All right.
Butterflies in my stomach
drum
right
roll,
now.
Please.
I'm like, my palms are sweaty. I'm not doing another drum roll. Just tell me who won. This is my third drum roll, dude.
The winner of the best category creation is Jason.
Oh, 5-hour energy for the win.
Okay, this is why I was torn, but I voted for you, Jason, only because, you did a great job. You both did. But I just listened to a My First Million podcast episode. Okay, the other day, and they were talking about 5-hour energy, and not this whole example, but they were talking about how they changed the buying context and putting it up on the counter. And so that it had already been percolating in my mind. I do feel like you have an unfair advantage there, but yeah.
They did. And that was a cool episode too, because they talked about the pizza, the another distribution example of it's like a new pizza chain, and they set it up so that it's all in gas stations. That's like distribution.
Oh, that's a great idea. Cool. Is this one of the more recent episodes?
Yes. Yeah.
Haven't listened to it yet. Okay.
Well, I'll take it anyway I can get it tomorrow. I appreciate it.
And you did a great job. I think you did a better job than they did of telling this story.
Well, hey, there you go.
Love that. Yeah. There you go, Jason.
Yeah. That definitely that was fresh in my head, so that inspired me to use that example. But hey, we all had good experience.
there's some other like honorable mentions that we could also talk about too. Like that's the hardest thing with this show, I feel like, is we have to only cover like 3 examples. Luckily, this was also unintentional. Like we picked very different companies, like in different spaces, like software, B2B, B2C, and so went pretty diverse with this one. But I think that like us all living in the SaaS world, there's a lot of honorable mentions that we like. I know Audience Plus is doing some cool stuff. Winter's doing some cool stuff. Those are the top ones that come to my mind. But yeah, sometimes I wish that we could like keep on going with other really great examples.
One company I'm watching, because I feel like they're even, maybe Audience Plus is being pretty specific about building a category. Winter's saying they're building a subcategory, but Copy AI, they've like doubled down on this.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
I feel like they are very vocal about their building a category, and they're following a very specific model. And it's interesting to see, and I don't know where it's going to end up, but it's another one of those things where you're just analyzing in real time. And I think they have a large challenge ahead of them where Audience Plus is brand new. And so out of the gate, they can kind of frame the story, versus Copy AI has context that they need to change, right? People think of them as a certain way in a certain existing category, and they need to carve themselves out of it. So it's very fascinating to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. And I do feel like when you look at more examples that are in the outside the software world, I think it's always very clear. You can kind of tell when there's a new category, like when it's a new category of something, or at least a very defined subcategory. But I find in marketing, sometimes it is that question of like, we'll see how this one plays out. Are they actually, is there a new category being created here, or are they just trying to market one?
Yeah.
Good. So
love it. Well, great episode.
Yeah. Great episode.
Keep noodling on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Well, I'll bring it home first. So again, everyone, thanks for tuning in today. Always love talking about category creation. And if you do have examples or ideas for future episodes, definitely do shoot us a message on LinkedIn and let us know. For now, we'll leave you waiting to see what the next episode is actually about. Before we go, though, a big shout out and a big thanks to the team at Klue and the Compete Network for helping us make this show possible. If you're looking to check out any old episodes, you can check it out on Apple, Spotify, but also on the Compete Network. So definitely go check those out. We've got some good past episodes. Other than that, though, we're looking forward to seeing everyone next time. So make sure you get in and vote on the poll that's being posted today. And other than that, we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.